CFOs. They'll discuss pending tax hikes that is facing corporate America. Joining us now from Washington, Congressman Roskam and Paul Farr, CFO of PPL. How much of the talk today will be about the cliff at the end of the year, Congressman?
Well, I think that's a looming sword of Damocles that's over the economy, and the leaders that we're hosting today in the Capitol are going to be focusing in on exactly that issue. If there's no action, if there's no intervening initiative here, those tax rates are going to go up and going to go up dramatically. So what today we're going to be focusing in is highlighting capital gains rates and dividends rates, the impact on the economy, and why we should work strenuously to keep them as low as possible.
Right now, if nothing is done, what happens to cap gains and dividends?
Well, cap gains goes, you know, they both just jump tremendously, and it's very, very interesting because you look at how this is, how this has an adverse impact on folks that are filing at less than $100,000. The folks that are claiming a capital gains are actually at 60% of taxpayers are at that number. So we've got to focus in and make sure that we're doing everything that we can for the economy to be robust and dynamic and moving forward and not doing any harm.
Is the point of this to try to have something done by the end of the year on the fiscal cliff, or overall tax reform, Congressman?
Well, I think it's a two-step dance. I think that there is a long-term desire to do corporate tax or overall tax reform without question, but in the meantime we've got to make sure that these rates don't go up at the end of this year. And I think Speaker Boehner has laid out a plan and a pathway to be taking this up next year in a very thoughtful way. But leaders like Paul have, I think, have a lot to say about this because it's having an impact on the capital deployment decisions that they're making right now.
Well, is that true, Mr. Farr?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very unfortunate time for a tax issue like this to come up because our sector has a capability to be very meaningfully additive to the economic recovery. We're forecasting as a sector to spend close to $1 trillion over the next 10 years, and this level of tax increase will really cause two things to happen. One, it'll affect the cost of capital that we're going to raise, and second, it has the capability to change materially the way that we decide to return capital to share owners. To the extent that the tax rates double as they're forecast to do, or if no action is taken, that's what happens, then I think this isn't an issue that affects people that make $250,000 a year or more. If companies simply decide to return capital by paying lower levels of dividends because we've picked a winner in returning capital via stock buybacks and cap gains, then that affects all dividend recipients.
I mean, as far as PPL goes, what's more important, or what's more looming, the end of the year or just overall tax reform? What would you like to see, a two-step process as well?
I think the practical reality is it will be a two-step process. I think it's a mistake to make a singular decision on taxes and parity with capital gains and not address those in the context of overall tax reform. Uncertainty isn't good outright, but it would be nice to see those fixed jointly. So I think logically what we'd like to see is an extension of the current situation for a meaningful time, keep the rates where they are today, leave them at a minimum in parity with each other, and then address things in a broader basis on a total reform basis down the road.
Yeah. What I think what you're saying is, what I'm hearing is that waiting till the next Congress to really get down to business, that would require some sort of an extension of the current rates at least sometime into next year. Do you think that that's a possibility looking forward? Because I think that if there's no resolution at all, again, that fiscal cliff on January 1st is going to scare the stock market, is going to scare the banks, is going to scare the consumer and investors and firms.
There's no question that it's a good, strong possibility, and that's what we're advocating for today. And as Paul made the point, if you extend these rates for a meaningful period of time, but then don't give up on the momentum. Look, there's nobody that can defend the status quo of the tax code in its entirety today. And there is a real opportunity for us to come together as a country and to come and say what we need is a tax code that makes the United States the most competitive tax jurisdiction in the world. And we've got all kinds of momentum behind that. The House Ways and Means Committee, under the leadership of Chairman Dave Camp, over the past 18 months, have held dozens and dozens of hearings to lay the record. And if you had to distill it down into one word, it is the word competitiveness. And to Paul's point, if you extend these for a meaningful period of time and then move forward and drive for a comprehensive agenda, I think that's where the overwhelming majority of Americans want to see us going, and that's what we're advocating today.
You know, we got this fiscal cliff, and now we got Speaker Boehner talking about not raising the debt ceiling. That's going to be at the end of the year too. I mean, we're setting ourselves up for quite a for some real fireworks here. But isn't it all keying off November, Congressman Roskam? I mean, I've heard someone say once that that's what elections are for. Isn't that what's coming up? We're not going to decide how to do any of these things, since both sides are so entrenched in their own approach to these things. It's going to take an election.
Yeah, the irony is the same voters, that is independent voters, sent two competing views of the economy and two different views of the world here. In 2008, they sent President Obama. In 2010, they sent a check and balance Congress that said, hey, slow that stuff down. And that, to your point, that has to be reconciled. And you know what? It will be, because the status quo is completely unacceptable. And I think whoever has the momentum coming out of November is going to be driving the agenda next year. I, for one, say let's make sure these rates don't go up. Let's move very quickly into a tax reform agenda that's comprehensive. And I think that based on what I'm hearing from my district in suburban Chicago, that's where the lion's share of folks that I represent want to see us moving.
Congressman, do you hear anything about the Supreme Court and Obama? Do you know anything that we don't know here? Every Monday, it could happen any Monday, or is it going to be June?
Look, it can happen anytime 9 justices decide they want to release that opinion. So the House has been meeting and anticipating various moves. You know what it is. There's going to be one of three things is going to happen. Either they uphold the whole law, strike it all down, or strike down parts of it, and then the House is poised to move forward on that basis. But I don't have any more information than you do, and we're all waiting for white smoke to come out of the top of the chimney across the street, and we'll see what happens.
I know. The big piece in the Journal, I guess it's a Journal today, is that, you know, some governors, you know, there's 29 states that are challenging it, and they're not moving at all. They're dragging their feet on implementing any of these exchanges, and now the White House is trying to get involved to get to make it, I guess, advantageous to start setting these things up. But half of them are saying we're assuming it's going to get thrown out. You think it's going to get thrown out, Congressman?
Well, look, I sat in on one of the hearings that morning, and it is a very dangerous thing to be speculating about what the justices are doing. But I mean, it was almost inconceivable to me, based on the questions and the answers, that they were going to be just giving it its unbridled imprimatur. I think the court's going to have some changes on it, and that's my prediction.
Yeah, and the reaction by the president the next day or the day after, with the the lecturing of these guys, I think they were worried too. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I hope he doesn't go that admonition route. Look, they're a co-equal branch of government. They're doing their job, and I'm sure that the opinion that they issue is going to have the support of folks that say, look, they've looked at it and evaluated on the merits. And
I don't know. To get into the business of evaluating legislation, I don't. That for the Supreme Court, that sounds crazy. Anyway,
that's what they do.
No, I know.
They call balls and strikes.
Marbury Madison. I mean, it's only been how many years is it? 1802 or 1803? But
right.
I don't know.
That was a great baseball game.
Yeah, it was. Mr. Farr, thank you, Congressman Roskam. We appreciate your time today.
Thanks very much.
Mr. Farr, you can talk about health care too if you want. I guess you got to deal with that as well. But I decided I'd go with the legislator. Anyway. Thank you. Coming up,
thank you very much.
You're welcome. Coming up, we're going to introduce you to Mr. IPO. You're going to do that one.
Yeah, Jay Ritter. I know.